Like what you're listening to? Don't forget to like, share, or follow our From the Mount podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of From the Mount, a podcast from the campus of Mount Paran Christian School. I'm your host, Steve Kyle. As usual, glad to be back here. And like I've started off a lot of these episodes, if you have yet to like or follow or share our podcast, you need to. Why? What are you ashamed of? What are you embarrassed about? Especially today's episode. If you're a sports person or you know people who are sports people, you're going to want to share this with all your friends and family. They're going to want to hear all about our guest and Mount Paran and athletics. But again, thank you for listening, and I do hope you'll share this with your friends and family. Get this great information out there. Well, this episode, if you looked in the description, we have a brand new guest. Love having new guests because we get to meet somebody new. But we are thrilled to have in the studio our new director of athletics, Mr. Mike Walker. Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Steve.
Great to have you here on the podcast. And I say new, I don't know when people are listening to us. This is recorded in the fall of 2025. So you're new then. So if you're listening to this 2 years from now, Mike isn't new. Hopefully Mike's still here, but he won't be new. And so Mike serves as our director of athletics, and I'll tell you, that is no small feat with the program we run here. I'm thankful that no one has introduced me as director of athletics. Would not want that job. But Mike, thrilled to have you in the studio.
Yeah.
Glad to have you. And then welcome, of course, to Georgia and to our area because you're also new to that, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So there are people who don't know you.
Yeah.
And I might even learn something about you today. But why don't you let's start with introducing who is Mike Walker to our community. Would love to hear that.
Oh, man. Well, first off, beautiful studio. This is fun. Thank you for the opportunity to do this.
Of course.
And I am loving Georgia right now just because it actually has a fall season.
That's true.
I lived in Houston, Texas for the past 7 years, and so summer turns into winter all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been fun. So Mike Walker, been in Christian education since 2001. Started teaching PE and coaching right out of college after playing college basketball. And at some point through the journey, got offered an athletic director position. I said, "What does that guy do?" And the previous AD was going to be still in the building and help coach me up. So I had the opportunity to be an AD at a small school in Pennsylvania. And I was at two different schools in Pennsylvania until about 2018. And then had the opportunity to go down to Houston to lead the program at Second Baptist School in Houston, Texas for the past 7 years.
Wow. Yeah. Now, where's home? Where were you born and raised?
Yeah. So New Jersey.
So you're a Northeast guy.
Northeast.
Yeah. Okay.
My wife was from York, PA. I grew up mostly in New Jersey, lived in Buffalo, New York for a few years. So I definitely know.
Beautiful this time of year.
Snow and real winter.
Yeah.
But now my parents live in Florida. My brother also lives in Florida. My another brother lives in North Carolina. So mostly East Coast.
Yeah. And so you were at Second Baptist, which I've been to, visited, great staff, great people. I think we've talked about this. I met you then in my visit a number of years ago. So, and you love that. You were at Second Baptist. I think you said for what, 7 years?
7 years, yeah. Incredible opportunity, great organization. Just worked along some high-level leaders. I feel like God really grew me in leading other high-functioning adults, not even leading, just coming alongside and rubbing shoulders and learning from one another and trying to achieve big things, which we had some great success. Won 9 state championships, saw a lot of kids kind of go to college, but really just being part of that high level. It's a mega church, so there's 90,000 members, several campuses, and then one kind of high-functioning Christian high school on one of the campuses that I led the athletic program.
Yeah, I remember visiting, and it's kind of this weird kind of shared, not weird, but different shared kind of campus, and it feels like you're at one point in the mall, like when you're in like the main, almost like atrium, food court, coffee shops. The gym is this way, like fitness center, family. It's unbelievable. It's a beautiful place. I mean, remarkably huge, and it was. And I think you guys were building something when I was there. I want to say there was a building going up. There was some
most recently, the lower school building, I think 4-story lower school building.
Yeah, that's what they were building. Because I remember thinking it was
youth ministry building.
Yeah, it was enormous. And so but you're now here. And so what brought you to Mount Paran? Obviously in Houston, different I mean, there's obviously some similarities between us and
Mhm.
our schools, but what drew you here to Mount Paran?
Yeah, well, first off, I'm pretty well connected with just ADs around the country, and so I'm aware through
Yeah.
CISA and some other organizations of just the highest functioning, Christian high schools. And so Mount Paran has a great reputation, and really just at a point in my life where two of my kids are in college. I have a daughter at Liberty; she's a junior education major. And then
Thanks.
my freshman son is up in Indiana at Indiana Wesleyan studying business and playing football. And so we have one child left, Micah. He's a 10th grader here at Mount Paran, and so I think some of the just prayer between my wife and I is, what is the long-term
Yeah.
play? And about the same time, I have a buddy that was up here in the Atlanta area that somehow knew Dr. Curlin. So they had breakfast. Somehow my name came up. Probably the Lord had something to do with that.
Yeah.
And I had a phone call with Dr. Curlin and, was encouraged to walk through the process, and Lord did the rest. So I'm excited to be here and take on the new challenge at Mount Paran, which is an incredible place.
Awesome. Well, then, and we're certainly glad to have you. And again, it's not without, Mount Paran. If you're not uber familiar, you got young kids, and you're not familiar with the number of athletic programs we have,
Mhm.
the number of coaches that entails, and so although you've got a great team,
Yep.
it all when you consider going all the way to the top, that's a lot of programs, coaches, assistant coaches, practices being held. It's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for some, including me, probably a bit overwhelming. So thankful that is not my title. But let's go backwards a little bit to what even got you into athletics, maybe even Christian athletics.
Sure.
Because I think that obviously athletics it's been a massive part of my background. I wouldn't be me without not only my desire to playing sports, my still love of sports today as formed and shaped, but of course in a different way. It's your calling, it's your job, it's your career. So you played college basketball?
Yeah.
What shaped you in that way that kind of brought you down that?
Well, growing up with one of three boys is where it started. Just, kind of doing everything outside, the old cliche of we weren't allowed in the house. We just played everything in the neighborhood and all of that. And then went to a basketball camp and visited a school called Baptist Bible College at the time. Now it was called Clark Summit University, and now it's closed.
Yeah.
In Clark Summit, Pennsylvania. But man, you could really just see the Lord orchestrating those steps. Grew up in the home of a Baptist pastor, and was around it and really just learned how to play the game. And then I think really instrumental in my life change, or like my personal walk with the Lord, and understanding what it really took to have a biblical worldview and a perspective of athletics through my love for basketball, which a guy named Mike Shaw, our coach, just kind of created that culture.
Yeah.
And so I experienced life change through sport, which I think is very unique. And then when I got into coaching, that was my forefront. It's like, man, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to impact kids' lives, and I want to coach, and I want to be fiery, and I want to, have this passion for athletics that's different. And I had the opportunity to do that through basketball, and then eventually transitioning into, really shaping culture for an athletic department as I aged became just the same amount of energy and enthusiasm that came from coaching now in leading athletic departments and kind of shaping what that looks like and how kids and families experience athletics, and really leveraging their attention for athletics, because it's just this natural love. Like, you just love playing, you love the energy that comes with it. And so how do you leverage that into capturing young people's attention for the kingdom?
Yeah, and that's, when I think, and I grew up in a big public school, and my coaches were fantastic, and they were great people. I don't know if any of my coaches were at any point believers. If they were, there was no evidence of that in the sense. Great men over my career. So in no way do I look at that and think, oh man, I had terrible. Not at all. I mean, and I remember what I was willing to do for my coach.
Right.
I remember listening and hanging on every word of your coach, wanting to please your coach. And of course, seeing, wow, that's crazy influence. What impact that you can have. And then, of course, your perspective was, man, how do I leverage that for the kingdom?
That's right.
It was what I think, impacted you and which I think is so awesome. How do I now do that for a generation or generations of other people? And so now you currently don't coach anymore. You're just athletic director.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, because you're thinking, golly, when would I ever have time to do that? And basketball, I think, was your coach. And you have a son who plays basketball.
I do.
So that would be, who wants to do that, right? Some people would, maybe. I had the privilege years ago to coach my daughter in basketball. They were only in middle school at the time.
Okay.
I remember having the opportunity to do that, and it was. I think the older they would have gotten, had I done that, this would not have been a good fit. Something would have had to give, and it wouldn't have been coach. So let's talk a little bit, because everybody, if you know anything about athletics, there's philosophy to athletics. There is vision. I mean, everybody kind of has their idea. When you think of even some of the great legendary coaches, Christians or non-Christians, they're so things they've brought to the game, things they've changed about. And so ultimately there's this idea, there's a philosophical approach to athletics. You've shared a little bit of that already a bit. But when you consider that, what would be, again, maybe you won't define it as a philosophy, if you will, but how you would look at how you approach athletics. Whether you like it or not, although you've got a great staff underneath you, the buck stops with you. I mean, when it comes to vision and direction for the program, you have people speaking into you, but they're going to be looking to you for that. How do you, from a philosophical standpoint, and then when you look at defining success, how will that be done as the athletic director here at Mount Paran Christian School? So, tough question, I know. On the spot.
Success is super tough to define. Even Google says there's no best definition of it. So, it just kind of sits there as this overarching, somewhat unattainable thought. But man, success is to me striving, which comes from Colossians 3:23, which is, do everything that your hand finds to do with great effort and a great attitude. And so perspective is not kind of taking some of the results away. I believe result is a byproduct of doing those things well.
Yeah.
And, I have a little bit of a pet peeve and cliche just in the term Christian athletics. I think athletics is athletics. Like, what it takes to do athletics well is going to be the same at just about every school. Kind of like, you don't want to be the best Christian doctor. You want to be the best doctor.
Yeah.
Like, if we're going to do athletics, we have an obligation to do it well. Now, our outcome might change given our perspective of why we do it, who we do it for, what's our strategy come from, and how we, bring a group of young people together. So, I think that's a little bit of where it starts. And, winning and success are often tied together in from a secular standpoint. But from a Christian perspective and a biblical world perspective, we got to do everything it takes to be successful on the field, just like everyone else. And then where my personal experience and philosophy has come into it is, man, when you do it from a Christian perspective and, you see your teammates that way and you see the outcome the way that God sees us and what my value is, it's freeing. It's actually an advantage to do athletics from a Christian perspective.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that you hope to be able to convey to a young person who maybe comes into, 7th and 8th grade basketball, where it's kind of all about friendship and status and, club team and who am I and identity. And then through a process of maturity and even the word discipleship of helping a young person understand what really shapes their perspective about identity and winning and status and respect and championships and all of that kind of as the culmination of their experience in high school athletics.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so, and again, correct me if I didn't hear this right. And I think I did, because this idea isn't, it isn't that we don't want to win. We want to win. Oh yeah. No, success would be a byproduct of that. But the recognition is, hey, referencing the Colossian verse, hey, anything you put your hand to should be done with all your might for excellence. And the byproduct of that we want and desire is winning.
Correct.
It isn't like, oh, we just want, kids who don't want to belittle the Bible sword drill, or you need to have all those kinds of things. It's all we care about is, we spend, 3 hours in prayer and 15 minutes on the field practicing. Yeah. And again, I don't want to belittle prayer. This is about, hey, we want and expect what the Word of God does. That's excellent.
That's right.
And the byproduct of excellence, we desire to be wins.
Yeah.
But if it's not,
and competing, the competition and the successful competition is a platform. If a team comes in here that doesn't know anything about this Jesus guy, and we have Christian across our chest, Mount Paran Christian, and we're just really nice kids that get smoked, and then, hey, let's circle up and pray. Let me tell you about Jesus.
Yeah.
You're terrible. Like, what? I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
that might be a little far stretched, but
Yeah, I know what you
if
mean.
if we got kids out there that are, nose to nose competing, they're prepared, they're well, got their game plan together, they're competing with like fight and spirit and energy and intensity, and they're smiling and helping you up and like competing right with the best teams in the area. They're like, man, what's different about these kids? Why are they so playing together and playing with that much effort and energy and enthusiasm? And, they didn't respond to that bad call, or, I tried to get in their ear and talk some smack and they just kind of ignored me and smiled, and like, that's different. And so
Yeah.
when you compete with the best of the best and do it in a little bit different way, perk someone's curiosity is like, hey, tell me about your team. Like, how do you get your kids to play like that?
Yeah.
Now that's a platform. Now that's a testimony opportunity.
Yeah, and people like you just said, they're asking questions and opens doors for. Let me tell you how and why we do what we do. So, and this is different, obviously, than when you and I were growing up. We're probably similar in age and our generational time of playing sports in school. We did not have social media. ESPN and Sports Center really wasn't a thing back in my middle school and high school. It just wasn't around then. We weren't consumed with this, especially with athletics. It can be this way. This me, very athlete-centric, NIL deal making, the culture is all about my own success. It's why I think travel sports have exploded, because, hey, we can make you better, more, create visibility for the coaches and get you into other platforms. And hear me, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with travel sports or anything wrong with us wanting to achieve, but athletics can quickly shift, as it does, I think, in our culture, to personal achievement. What I can accomplish, all about me. How is our plan? What do we do, continue to do, or what will we begin doing? So we can. I do think there's a negative side to that,
Sure.
me-centric part of that. Give me your thoughts on that, and then how we approach, or you think it should be approached. So we look at this and go, whoa, dial it back, champ.
Yeah.
You're not the next Michael Jordan, but what would you say to that?
Well, yeah, it's worth striving for, but that, disease of me, as I've heard it called, does creep in, and everything in culture kind of like begs you to do that,
feeds it.
to strive for the social media shout out, the first team all conference, the individual awards. And it's something that you have to fight. But that's where, I say athletics is athletics, but this is probably the main thing that, like, from a proper perspective of, what God's commanded us to do, is it's never all about you, even in an individual sport. Like, nothing is achieved alone. And that's the lie that the world tells us, is like, you have to, remember the Titans is like, no, I'm going to worry about me and I'm going to get mine. And like, if everyone does that, it's this pulling of the team apart because everyone's going in a different direction. And that's kind of the lie that you're told, is to like look out for yourself and like try to get noticed, when honestly, the magic of team sports is when you do the opposite. Like, as soon as I start to like make you want to acknowledge how good I am and do things so that you notice how good I am, your natural instinct is to kind of knock me back, is to almost prove that I'm not as good as I say I am. Now, from a competition opponent standpoint, that can work, but from a team perspective, it's actually the opposite. Like, the less I try to inflate myself and the more I try to encourage you, it's like if I sat here and gave you 5 compliments, your natural instinct would, almost humility would take over, and you'd want to say a compliment about me.
Sure.
Where the lie is that you pump yourself up, but the real magic and even the principle of God's word is says, no, you don't elevate yourself, like allow others to elevate you. So everyone likes to be encouraged. I mean, I have no doubt that I wouldn't want, a coach to stop by my office and be like, hey, Mike, just wanted to let you know you're the greatest idea I've ever had. Like, no one does that.
Yeah.
But somehow
come on, if anybody's listening, come on, swing by. Yeah.
But even from a teammate perspective, I probably wasted 3 years of my entire college career like hoping that the coach would notice how much work I was putting in and how much effort I was given and my talent level, and I deserved to kind of play a little bit more and have an elevated role or whatever.
Yeah.
And once you figure out that, he's watching a whole team full of people, like, you change your perspective to, no, I'm going to give my best effort because I should and because I can. Like, I have 1 year left to play, or, sports is fun. Like I need to enjoy it and give effort because I can. That's actually freeing. And that's the scenario where people will actually start to notice like, man, this, when it's just this humble like effort and energy and enthusiasm and attitude. So, coming back to the main point is this like deflection of self. If you can get an entire locker room to start noticing the effort that everyone else is putting in and to pick each other up after a bad play or refocus your teammate after a bad call, like that also is contagious in the other side. And so to counterculture that, I mean, that's really a coach's challenge, is to take a room full of, people that have their own agendas and their own like desires to be noticed and get that kind of going in the same direction.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, obviously easier said than done.
Yeah.
And especially in, again, a culture that celebrates the individual, making it all about them. And I think it's hard to do when you're having to combat, again, what my coaches didn't really have to. We were prideful and wanted ours in some way, but we weren't being fed every day these messages from a world being in a handheld device, and us seeing the highlight reels and the of all that going, that, ooh man, I want that. Look at all the likes they're getting, the followers
Those
have.
Endorphins kick in.
Yeah, they do, and it's a real thing, but it's pride, and Scripture of course talks about that, and it usually comes right before some kind of fall, whether it's personal or potentially your team crumbling.
And a coach can steer that really by just acknowledging, like if you see even one time a kid kind of either deflect praise or, notice something positive. I know, certain teams will do like their kind of encouragement circle where they kind of go around and say something nice about other people. Those things are great just to do that. And then just kind of a real quick, it's not even an acronym, just something I heard and stole one time that I probably just keeps coming back into my mind about, if it's good, we did it. I wrote it down here. If it's great, you did it. If it's bad, I did it. Like a simple process of like the way that you think about team success and individual success. And quite honestly, some of the best athletes in the world have this figured out better than, high school athletes. Is like, it's all about my O-line, or they kind of deflect praise and then they know it kind of comes back to them on the other side. But, if we just kind of accomplish something together, acknowledge that. And if it was really good, really like great, find someone else to kind of thank for their part in it. And then, if it's bad, be willing to take the blame for it when you mess up.
Yeah.
And especially as leaders, when you can stand up there and acknowledge your limp or your insecurity or the way that you messed up, that's like permission for the entire group to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the challenge of, and the reason, again, why coaches are so, it's a difficult job, because it's more than just the wins and losses or the conveying of information, but highly relational, and you're requiring another level of motivation. Oftentimes you're asking some to, and then of course you're recognizing you can give more. Like I see that in you and how we do that. And so, I think that's important. And then I think, which I'll kind of move into the next question, I think it's how or why we're doing what we're doing, which I think the motivation that's to me in Christian athletics was always kind of the most freeing for me, because if it was just about championships, you feel like if you don't reach a championship, if I failed and this year was a failure. And of course, when you do it, athletics from a biblical perspective, again, we're not saying you can just, hey, let's have fun, everybody. Practice is about, let's all feel good and everybody gets equal playing time, or we're just going to make everybody. Of course, that's nonsense. But let's talk about this idea of who we do it for, this idea of focusing on doing it for a higher purpose or greater purpose, more than just a win or a loss. So how do you get athletes to begin to see that, though? Because the reality is, I want mine. And when the game, if we didn't lose, I think you kind of really someone else's fault. If they would have pulled their weight, if you would have made your buckets, if you would have done this, so how do we begin to get athletes to see this idea that it's about God's glory and not about necessarily a win or a loss?
Yeah, your view of competition probably starts to shape that. If you view competition as a chance to prove how good you are and to earn respect and one step in, winning the glorification of a championship, your identity and your ego is tied to it. So when an opponent or an official or a teammate or a coach takes that away from you, you're going to lose your mind.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what you've identified as what competition means to you. And the mature athlete and, even mature from a biblical worldview perspective I have these conversations with, my own son and my kids as they were going through high school sports and championship games is the success tied to what's your view of the competition. I tie it to the arts. We're in this beautiful arts building, right? You don't just sign your kid up for 3 recitals, right? Without knowing that they're going to put in the work and be successul. So, the preparation where if you start to view competition as an opportunity to see if your work is paying off, you see competition as an opportunity just to do that, compete. Hey, I want to line myself up against a good opponent. I'm going to respect that opponent, acknowledge his or her talents and the work that they've put in, and see how I measure up.
Yeah.
And so I know what work I either still have to do or just enjoy the competition.
Sure.
And, the energy that it gives. Number one reason why kids play sports survey-wise is it's fun. Number 2 is because they play with their friends. Yeah. It's not NIL money and college opportunities. That's further down the line. And then the final one is when you begin to view competition as a spiritual act of worship and, you're giving your all because the opportunity is there. Man, that changes your approach to even the at-bat. When you're nervous about striking out as opposed to man, this is a good pitcher. I put the work in. Let me see how I measure up. And, Lord, just help me to stay calm and, put a good at-bat together. Yeah. Right? That even changes the central nervous system.
Yeah.
Your approach to that free throw or that at-bat or that, that opportunity to succeed. So, just to put all things in perspective and helping kids understand that competition aspect and putting winning in perspective. One quick story. 2 years ago, I took both soccer coaches from Houston up to a small Division III college in Pennsylvania, Messiah College. Yeah. They had one of the winningest soccer programs in Division III, multiple national championships. And I remember they told a story about a camp they ran in the summer, a year after winning a national championship. They were selling national championship T-shirts to campers, out on a table at intermission. Yeah. And this young high school kid comes up to the table, lifts up the shirt, and says, that was last year. And he's like, that's it. That's perspective. We put all this work in, and, it still can be that's so last year. What you did in terms of winning, just put it in perspective as opposed to the culture you created, the lives that were impacted, the relationships that will last in eternity. It's worth striving for, and that championship is worth going for and putting your all into and capturing. Sure. But it does kind of put it in perspective, and especially in a sport like soccer, you could have the ball in your half the whole time, and you could win the game 18-2 in terms of shots and still lose 1-0. Does that mean your effort was in vain and it wasn't worth the competition? No. So one's view of competition is shaped to go back to your worldview and how you view competition and how you view your value as a human being. And sport is something that you love to do. And yes, we'll get into this in a minute, but yes, it's worth the work and it's worth learning the discipline and the unseen hours and all the stuff that goes into that opportunity, because there still is nothing like sports. I have a article on the top of my X page that I wrote years ago about athletics being the last place on earth where kids are undistracted. They have one-to-one technology in the classroom. They take their phones and their tablets to church. I drive my kid to school every morning. He's got his phone in the passenger seat, but somehow you show up to practice and you're on one knee in the huddle or in the team room, right? That's undistracted. And so leveraging that power where coaches have their attention. Yeah. Leverage that.
Yeah. For the right thing. So you mentioned worldview, which kind of leads me, we're consistently here at Mount Paran, we talk about worldview and the intentional focus of our own worldview. Specifically, of course, is this idea of a biblical worldview, how we approach life in general and so what do you think when you consider this idea of athletics through? And again, you've touched on this, so I don't
Yeah.
expect you to expand enormous on this, but what does athletics look like? It's something that we talk about, something we do, something we'll continue to add to and refine. But how do you, if I'm listening, and what does athletics look like through this idea of a biblical worldview, developing worldview? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, all those things we just talked about
Yeah.
are aspirational. Like it's really tough for a coach who's not experienced it personally to then know how to translate that into helping a young person, a sophomore and a high school athletic program to to develop all those worldview things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm only a couple months in here, but right from our August in-service, we did touch on, biblical immersion and what that looks like from a coach to a kid. And I think it starts with the life of the coach.
Yeah.
I go back to my coach in college, Mike Shao, and me and my teammates have talked about this. I don't remember any of his prayers or devotionals. It's not like he came in the locker room and read Chicken Soup for the Athlete's Soul and I turned my life over to Jesus. It's who he was. It's how he loved his wife and led his family and challenged us and held us accountable and kind of told us what he was learning in the Bible and like what he was struggling with. Not his deepest, darkest, inner thoughts, but like he was growing in his walk with the Lord right in front of us. And so we knew it was authentic. And lately I've just really been, a couple of years ago, I read Tim Elmore's book, Gen Z Unfiltered.
Yeah.
And man, mind blowing just to like understand that it's not a negative. It's like a kids these days things, but they're digital natives. Like they're not impressed with your bio. Like they can fact check you, like the attention span and all of this. And so if you're just standing in front of your team, like, all right, let's pray, or let me read this devotional before game time. They see right through that. Like, yeah, we're at Mount Paran Christian School. He's supposed to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you share your testimony or when you talk about, what you learned in church this week, or you talk about like how you're growing in your walk with the Lord, I mean, really what you want is the kids to be kind of looking at you out of the corner of their eye like, this guy's for real. Like this lady, like she loves Jesus. And that's where this passion for winning and this passion for competing and this passion for leading young people comes from.
Right.
And that's magnetic. That's authentic. That's transparent. That's not fake. And so I put the illustration up of a tree, and I've done this for years, is that, even biblical, where your branches never outgrow your roots. So if you're intending to have this big impact and life change on kids, and, you're not yourself, like deepening your walk with the Lord, where it comes from an outpouring of just your growth, I don't know that you'll ever really like have the impact that you're intending to have.
Yeah, man, that's good. And I hope whether you're just a parent encouraged by that, or you're a coach who's listening going, wow, like that's not me. And again, nobody's perfect, but maybe we've looked at this the wrong way, and we start asking ourselves, all right, what's most important in life? If basketball, baseball, football, whatever were to disappear today, what's most important in recognizing that? And I think that's
but it wasn't sorry to interrupt, it wasn't in place of preparing me as an athlete. It was part of it. It's like, no, when you do this drill and I'm on the other side of the room and you give half effort, like that, like that's a character flaw. Like that God doesn't want that from you. Because, when you come home from a long day's work, like you got to do what I call flip the switch. Like you got toddlers, like you got a wife, like you got a job, like you got to choose your effort level based on, what you're capable of in terms of like what God's called you to do, not to please me. This is my coach telling me this. He's like, don't please me. I'll let you down every time. So like he took athletic preparation and interpreted it for me.
Yeah.
Which is, man, so powerful.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's obviously, even still today.
Yeah.
I mean, this many years, it's what shaped and formed you. And again, I don't remember when I think of my coaches who were non-believers. Again, to my knowledge, great people. But when I think of that, I don't remember the plays we ran. I don't remember. But even for someone who doesn't know or love Jesus, you do remember how coaches made you feel. You remember how they motivated you. Realize that influence is so powerful. And then when you think that it's all for playing a sport that in the end doesn't matter. When it's all said and done, God doesn't care how many points you averaged per game, how many sports you played, what your NIL deal was. Didn't care about all those. In the end, it's about, bringing glory to God and enjoying Him forever. I mean, that's the purpose and meaning of life. And when we have that and look at that and go, and as a byproduct, I get to coach and play this sport. Like, that's just a bonus in all of this to help point people to that. To me is and you've said it twice already, that it's almost freeing. It pulls the pressure off to know I'm going to measure success looking down the road one day at how many men of God I've created, not championships I've gotten together, how many men that I've created that are now in wonderful, beautiful marriages, leading their home. That to me is the win, not these rings.
I do like rings.
Rings are great. Oh, listen, I think rings are a byproduct of all those things. Oh, you can have both. Make no mistake about it. You can shape and form and point players in the right direction and win champions. That's the great part about it. You can do both, for sure. So, I definitely want to say, I would be silly to say that, man, I get rankled when, even when I'm not coaching, like we don't win. I'm like, ugh. Like I don't like the way that it makes me feel. So
sure.
And then of course, all this isn't said, doesn't happen without, of course, when we consider our student athlete, forming and shaping and developing student athletes is a key part of what we do. But helping them see that, hard work, commitment, all that kind of stuff, but also keeping the right perspective of their talent. What would you say when you talk about how we help direct our kids to keep the focus in the right place as they assess their own talent even?
I think it goes back to like just the humility. Trying to think of the book. Ideal Team Player is the book. Humble, hungry, and smart. That's a great place to start if you just want proper perspective. Even us, as we're grown professionals. I have grown kids and been an AD I've been in athletics for 25 years, but humble enough to know that I don't know it all, and I'm not seeking the glory that comes with this profession. Hungry enough to like continue to get better, and so if you're a junior athlete, to just start from that standpoint of like, okay, I might be the best person in this gym. Let me find a new gym. Or like keep pushing yourself to test yourself against people that are, the better or more advanced. And again, enjoy the competition. Humble to just keep learning, keep growing, like have that general thirst for knowledge, which is also biblical. And then, that Ideal Team Player book says the third one is smart, not like intelligence, but, as you get involved in relationships, we're in a relational world. So being a teammate, being a husband, a son, a daughter, all that stuff is just having the, relational intelligence to know when to offer encouragement, when to call someone out, when to have a hard conversation, when to just, kind of have fun, how to navigate some of the relational strategies. But, that'd probably be the easy answer to just where you start in terms of having a proper perspective of how good you are. And certainly like telling someone how good you are never really goes well.
So you're early on in your tenure here. And of course, athletics, arguably the most influential culture on any campus.
Visible.
I really do. Visible, yeah.
Most visible for sure.
100%. And I do. I think, again, as an athlete and the influence our coaches have, I think most of them probably understand. I think some that probably still don't even understand the significance of their influence. It's crazy. But one of your tasks in this leadership role is helping to build a strong athletic culture. And I'm not saying there's not one here, but it's, of course, whatever level it is, it's maintaining and striving that we go forward. What kind of lessons, what principles, things from Scripture do you see that you would share with our listeners, somebody who's listening, going, all right, moving forward, here are a few kind of things that I feel like are necessary shapers of a strong athletic culture rooted in the truth of Scripture?
I go back to probably, I think it's 1 Corinthians 9, the all runners run, Just the concept of like we're at the task of athletics, so we have to know from even my athletic director standpoint, like what does it take to do athletics well, and that's like a program of excellence type things in terms of like the number of coaches, access to facilities, communication strategies, admissions retention, budget, like all the things from my desk.
Sure.
Hiring, onboarding, like those things just from a professional standpoint, like we got to get right. I often talk with other administrators about like other ADs. What are the things you can't miss? I think the two S's from my world, suit and sanctions. Like we got to get our GHSA stuff right.
Yeah.
And we got to protect kids. And like from a legal standpoint, it starts there. But then from the athletic department, just in terms of how we do athletics has got to go right. Because that lends to the experience of, we could talk about kids' experience and coaches' relationships and winning, but they're standing on the curb and the bus doesn't show up. You don't have an opportunity. So you got to get the big things right.
Yeah.
In order to give kids an opportunity.
Yeah. But then when you consider Christ-centered culture, you want to create an athletic program where it feels different.
Yeah.
You come on and you play sports at Mount Paran. Yeah, you're going to win. You're going to be pushed. It's not always going to be easy. But how is it going to be different than playing at the local public school, the other private schools in the area, when you consider creating a Christ-centered culture of athletics that after, again, not in any way minimizing what you just shared. Those are all, you can have Jesus at every one, but if you don't have a bus ready to pick kids up, you're failing. So I get that. But so when you're trying to prioritize now a Christ-centered culture, so student athletes go, man, this is different here, playing for this program in a number of sports, not just for one coach or for this program, but all the programs. What do you think are some key things that to do with that?
It starts with people for sure, just in how you onboard, hire, and, develop coaches because they're the executors. Like I can sit here and pitch an incredible philosophy of Christian education through athletics. I don't coach any of our teams. So the people that are actually doing it, are the key asset in executing mission and giving kids an incredible experience and shaping culture. So what makes, our baseball program different than, public school baseball program up the street? Coach Reese. We have like our pillars. We have the MPC way on the website, and that's great.
Yeah.
But, his ability to understand that and interpret that for our kids and really comes down to what he corrects and praises, right? And I'm not picking on Coach Reese. I just have to use the baseball example of, I think just as parents, we're parents, right? And our kids, I have two kids in college and one in high school. Like they're shaped by what I correct and praise. And also what they view from me. So I hate to keep going back to, there are some things we can do in terms of like, athlete chapels and, captain leadership programs. Like those are some staples in how to do it. Even like how we give awards, from an athletic department does like kind of interprets for the kids what we value.
Yeah.
So
good point.
All those things from an athletic department standpoint, but I still think your biggest asset and executor of mission and shaping culture is the people that you're putting in front of our kids.
Yeah.
And, for a school of our size with 17 programs and I think 64 teams, 80, 90 coaches, like that's a lot of men and women that are out there doing life with our kids and helping them, execute athletics, but also interpreting athletics for them. And that's what shapes culture. So when a kid doesn't behave properly after a certain play, like you have an opportunity there. Are you, participating with him and just as vocal or, kind of correcting that behavior and giving him, reminder or rebuke is a great concept for athletes. Like we're two grown men, but I would hope that you wouldn't be offended if I gave you a reminder like, hey, Steve, don't forget we have the podcast at 12:30.
Yeah. Thankfully you didn't have to do that.
No, thankfully. But, if you're 1 minute late and I chew you out, like that's a rebuke. So I think reminders from a coach is like, hey, I've seen coaches do a great job of this too. Maybe a little testy game, late game timeout, which can sometimes be controversial.
Yeah.
But you set expectation like, hey, here's how we're going to handle the post game handshake, or hey, this is how we're going to handle this moment. You almost like put it in their perspective and remind them of the proper way to execute athletics and to respond to certain situations.
Yeah. So the culture obviously shaped predominantly by our coaches. And of course, if we want a Christ-centered program and culture, you got to have Christ-centered coaches.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be the priority. We got to put Christ at the center, recognizing that our coaches, anybody, we certainly shouldn't be spending more time in our sports playbook than we should, forgive the cliche, in God's playbook or his word that he's given to us. That should dominate our lives as much as the X's and O's dominate our lives. I feel like I think that's a key part in that. And I think you had mentioned, you brought up Kyle Reese. I've known Kyle now for 9 years, and man, he's a great example. Hear me, he's not perfect. He would be the first to tell you that, but he's a great example of trying to prioritize that kind of culture for sure in doing what we do here. So, I think that's a big part of that. And when we interviewed you, I know that was a priority for you in coach development and making sure our coaches are getting what they need. And that's a great thing that I feel like, again, from the outside observer, that you're pushing that, your desire is to push that needle and prioritize the big thing. So, and then you had mentioned this, and we'll kind of be kind of wrapping up. You had talked about discipleship and coaching. You had referenced this before about athletics being kind of a great discipleship opportunity or environment in our school. What do you mean? What does that look like? Because you had mentioned that a little bit earlier on.
Yeah.
What and maybe for the average person, not the average person, I think most people know what discipleship means, but there are people who might go, what do you mean by discipleship? Because it's not something you associate with coaching. I mean, sports. Most people, when you turn on ESPN, you're not hearing about the coach and the athlete's discipleship opportunities, right?
Yeah.
It should be something we hear about here, correct?
Yeah. The word coach is fundamental to the concept of discipleship. And, think coach bus or a coach, it moves people from one place to another. And so as a coach is involved in the lives of kids, that's really what they're doing. From an athletic standpoint, I hope a coach is moving me from one place of talent and fundamentals and ability and IQ to a new level by the end of the season or the end of the summer or whatever it may be. And I think the same in, a young person's walk with the Lord is that coach, in terms of discipling an athlete, helps them, come closer to their walk with the Lord and a better understanding of their perspective and their value. And so discipleship in an athletic realm is really just that coach being able to move people from one place to another. And that's time. I mean, a lot of people get into coaching. Maybe they had a great playing career and they get into coaching thinking it's, X's and O's and game planning and practice planning. And, you soon find out that, you're also a travel agent, a psychology professor, and just all the things that it takes to really coach, because it's relationships with kids, and that takes time. And so a coach that could be creative and create opportunities to do it as a whole team, but then follow up as, sometimes it's holding kids accountable. But man, the discipleship opportunity after you hold a kid accountable is putting your arm around them and walking to a locker room. Like, man, you know why I got after you today.
Yeah.
Man, you're capable of so much more. Like, God's given you this, this frame, this ability. Like, you've put so much work into this. Like, man, you can do this. Like, I want to see you be successful, and it kind of shape their perspective through love and encouragement. But that doesn't take out the accountability.
Sure.
And then the coaching hard.
Yeah.
Right. The best coaches know how to balance accountability and grace, and that's perfect line. That's inspiring, not defeating. And so, that's when the discipleship comes. Is, I'll keep going back to where, my coach just stopped by the dorm room and be like, man, how you doing? Like, what can I do to encourage you, inspire you? Like, I sense this frustration. Like, do you sense that? Do you have this antenna for your kids that leads to an opportunity to have a conversation? And then you got to be willing to press a little bit past good and okay.
Yeah, for sure.
How you
That's
doing?
Great.
Good.
Yeah.
How are you? Okay. All right, man. Good talk.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely have to, because that'll be the normal answer you get from a middle or high school student for sure. I know my own kids over the years, I've gotten a lot of goods and okays. Right along with that, what would you say to the parent listening, how they could help maybe along that discipleship process as we're kind of wrapping up at least our initial discussion here. We'll no doubt have more. How would you encourage a parent who's listening right now in this? So they've listened, they've heard a little bit about philosophy and understanding. What kind of perspective would you give to a parent listening, both as it relates to sports and athletics? Because I think this gives you an opportunity to speak to our parents about that, but then just their own student athlete about that. Could you share a couple nuggets for the listener?
Yeah, I'm not perfect here. My daughter was a good high school basketball player. She lost in 4 straight state championships.
Oh.
So got to the finals and lost. My son was a basketball player, eventually turned to an offensive lineman. So been the sports parent and the AD. And now my son Micah. And man, it's convicting, but it's the same approach really. It's like, can you model Jesus for them in a walk with the Lord? I mean, that's the most powerful thing you can do.
Yeah.
But when it comes to just being a sports parent, do you steal their joy or add to it? That's a convicting question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, if you've got that, and a parent's just going,
man, that walk to the car after the game, the awkward silence where the kid knows you're going to say something, that's going to question their effort or their attitude. I remember telling my daughter, "It's like I don't really care whether you make shots, but I want to see some effort." And I want to see you enjoy the game. And I want to see you like have fun out there and some of that kind of stuff. But I think some like tangible advice would, don't steal their joy. And sometimes that comes in just asking more questions than you make statements on that ride home. Like, hey, did you have fun? What was the best part of the game? What do you wish you could do over? Or what's the part that sticks out as like, man, that's something I got to work on. Like, can you ask more questions? And you're like, man, you were terrible out there. Like, I can't believe.
Yeah.
Not that you say that, but that's...
some sadly I've heard over the years say things like that. You could have done better if you wouldn't have missed that shot, or that's why you need to practice more free throws. And again, things that your kids probably know when they get in the car.
My kids used to say, I know when you're not having fun watching me because you pull your phone out and start recording.
Yeah, you're done.
That's it.
It's now just
we're watching this later.
Exactly. I've got your improvement tape is going to be your lowlights reel is coming out later.
And sports is low level fail. Like, let them fail. Like, there's certain things that my son's driving a car for the first time, I'm gonna be involved. Right?
Yeah.
He's going on his first date or like taking some trip by himself. Like, there's just certain level things that kind of back to the athletic. Like, there's just things you can't not be good at.
Yeah.
And I think sports is one of those things where, if you're on the 7th grade basketball team, you're a little frustrated with your role and maybe this is going on, like, man, encourage the joy, make sure they're having fun, and then inspire them to kind of figure it out. Like, it's one of those like toddler moments where your son's climbing up the stairs and you're not going to let him fall all the way down.
Yeah.
But that's how they learn, is let them struggle. And I think early on, especially in their sports career, is let it be their thing. And, I think one of the most powerful things you can say to your kid is, I love you. And man, I love watching you play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is. It's encouraging. Your kids love to hear that. It's great advice. All right. Two final things to kind of together. Future. You just got here, so I'm not asking for future plans like, hey, are we building a natatorium, or are we going to,
Heck yeah.
None of those things. But are we? I'm just kidding. So kind of the direction, are there anything like, hey, we're in a great place, but, we're going to be heading this way. And then if I'm a parent listening, what's the best way I can support, the program overall and this kind of thing, whether it's you and your role or coaches as a whole. So, and again, I don't need deep level every possible thing, but just some closing thoughts.
Yeah, man, I've seen a lot of Christian high school athletic departments, and Mount Paran's a special place, and that's that was attractive. There's a lot really good that's been built, and it was so good for even to come in as the 50th anniversary year and attend that luncheon and hear from some of the incredible people that God has used to just build the foundation of this place and move to this campus. Like, sitting at that lunch and hearing
the stories was great.
How that all happened, and to see some of those faces and to see some of the old photos was just like really encouraging to me to just feel like I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. And like, you drive on campus at Mount Paran Christian School, I mean, it's beautiful. There's just buildings and stadiums and facilities and all that stuff. But as I come into that, two things are important to me. One is just being at everything and meeting as many people as possible, and just feeling like at some point I'd like for people to not see me as the new guy, just like, oh, that's the AD. He loves Mount Paran, and like, let's go.
Yeah.
So it'd be number one. And two, just kind of look for some of the like behind the scenes cracks that might need to be filled in terms of our families and athletes experience. I think you drive on campus and you see all this. But, if you're an incoming freshman and you came to the admissions process and you're kind of looking around and you're hearing like kind of what it's going to be like, do we fulfill that? Like, is the back end experience matching, the expectation?
Yeah.
And so some of the systems, the parity of experience, where if you have one kid playing girls softball and a son playing baseball, are they, do you get the Mount Paran experience in every program? And so, spending time learning about, cross country and swim and fishing and flag football and tackle football and just all the things. And so identifying some things that we might need to kind of streamline or put some processes to, so that the experience is, matches the expectation. Yeah. And then certainly there's, I've already secretly presented a strategic plan to Dr. Caroline, but there's some things just as we continue to move and be one of those industry standard type of schools here in the Metro Atlanta area and even across the country. It's like what are the best of the best doing to provide an experience and to give our kids the best chance to compete. And
then if I'm a parent, how can I help support that? I mean, just overall, the program, the mission, the culture. Just again, you don't need to go into a long thing, but I'm just listening, going, all right, man, I'm excited. Yeah, love all that. How can I just be that parent that is the ideal parent?
Yeah, prayer for one. I mean, we have. I think I just put this in my little report. Something like hundreds of activities already this year in terms of away games and home games. So just like the volume of activity around this place. Just praying for the relationship between coaches and kids and our buses on the road and all just safety is that. Yeah. And in terms of like actually supporting, I mean, little plug for Eagle backers, just the way that parents can get plugged in and maybe there's a misconception that Eagle backers is like just for football or it's like sport by sport specific, but every school I've been a part of, the booster club has been an all sport kind of booster club. And that is the best practice model because you can kind of have an operational budget and then that becomes like the surplus where parents can get involved and through sponsorships or Eagle Backer memberships. And that's where that extra comes from that give our kids and coaches the tools they need and that exceptional experience. Introduce yourself. I know some people, I'm getting to know more, but a way that they can just encourage me and our coaches is to, introduce themselves, have friendly conversations, thank our coaches for the work that they're doing. Encourage our kids when you see them. No real crazy stuff there, but those are important things.
Yeah. And I think as I've coached for here. I've just done the girls golf program, but I've coached other sports, other places, and I think too, if you're a parent listening, giving our coaches and our staff the benefit of the doubt. Don't just assume that number one, what your student athlete comes home and says is the gospel truth that's happening and that we're
athlete interpretation.
Yeah, it's part of it. And again, I'm not saying you're saying ignore your kid, but I'm just saying give our coaches, and especially be open in your communication.
Grace on the front end. You've been watching your kid your whole life. And a lot of times, coaches get, a collection of 20, 30, 40, 50 kids and are learning all of them. And so maybe the role that they play in the first scrimmage might not be the one they end up with as they kind of tinker and put a team together. So especially grace on the front end, just understanding that, coaches are looking at, yes, the experience of your kid, but also trying to put the puzzle together for a group of kids where, you've been watching your kid your whole life. You know their strengths. You know your weaknesses. You know where they might best fit on the court or on the field. So that's a good point right there.
Yeah. And then two, I think, we need to be praying for our coaches 10 times more than we complain about our coaches. It's super easy to have it figured out when you're sitting up in the bleachers and you got the vision. Oh, we could have just done great. And again, being a part of Christian athletics and Christian schools for 30 years, I've heard a lot of complaining. And so I'm not in any way just saying, oh, it's a Mount Paran thing and it only happens. No, it happens. But I know this. I'm convicted because I've thought, all right, Lord, help me as when I've had kids play sports or I've, God, am I being the encouraging, prayerful one and not the loud, complaining one, especially to my
Mhm.
kids. Support them. If you got questions, listen, go to the coach.
Yeah.
We're not saying that you have to just take everything. And, if you get questions, I would encourage you to go to the coach. But boy, if we could pray for our coaches and model that, that's going to shape a
Yeah.
better experience. And again, I'm not speaking about one
Mhm.
particular parent or coach, but I think we're all guilty of that. Man, I think that can continue to move the needle and foster a better
Mhm.
Christ-centered culture, because it sets the tone for our kids
Yep.
to get it. And what a great example to have dad and mom praying for the coach and not complaining about the coach. So,
And our opponents, being hospitable to our opponents, and
yeah,
even those officials,
it's crazy.
giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, they don't always get it right. I'm going to even say that. I've questioned a few
I've
calls.
stood next to you at a softball game
Oh,
before.
trust me. There's not a sport I won't sit at that I won't be hypercritical. But again,
Yeah.
I try to keep it to myself or other people who see the game like I do and agree with me. But no,
Yeah.
it certainly
And
doesn't excuse it
reacting,
when I do it. Yeah.
reacting is different than the word "you" is usually like, don't go there.
Yeah, it is. It's one thing. So, well, I know this. We've opened up so many other subjects that
Yeah.
will hop on this podcast. We'll
fun.
be talking about. It has been. It's been great. It's been a great time together. And so, Mike, thank you for being on this episode. Appreciate it. Look forward to having you on future
sure.
episodes. And thank you all for listening to another episode of From the Mount.